It is overtime again for Old Favorite Friday, and I am here with Ralph, one of our brewers here at Barrel of Monks Brewing, discussing the Heavy Seas Beer Loose Cannon IPA. Now, this was another beer that was suggested to us several weeks back. We have backlog, we get a lot of suggestions, so we're just getting to this now. This was a beer that I was excited to tackle because this was one of my first big IPAs that I had years and years ago. This beer was first brewed back in 2004. They were called Clipper City Brewing at the time. They've kind of transitioned over to being Heavy Seas beers. And I remember really loving this beer the first time I tried it. It's big, it's malty. Ralph, you said that you really either haven't had this beer before or might not have had it in a long time. What's your impression of this beer now that you're drinking it right now?
Yeah, so I actually, one of the first things I noticed, and it just shows they obviously keep their process tight, is such a fresh hop character I got, because you get, I mean, this is definitely more old school, you get that big pithy grapefruit, but like recently with some of these beers, because they don't obviously go as quick, like I'll get something in what some of my friends and I will call like the Ghost of Hops Pass, where you're like, dang, that really had like some kind of bitterness or fruit character to it, but this is great. Whatever they're doing a really good job, because I'm getting, and like you said, it's been forever since I had this, but I'm getting grapefruit right up front. You're getting that pithiness, and you're probably getting a little bit of what would have been referred to as pine back in the day.
Yeah.
But what I like about this is, for being such an older brand, to me it's very citrus forward. Like I said, I get grapefruit, and I just knee-jerk think like grapefruit, tangerine, all those kind of flavors, but very much more in a old school bittering style, which I prefer myself.
Well, this beer was developed back in the day when we were talking, I'm not sure when the West Coast IPA craze really kicked off, but around that time, right, where bitterness was much more acceptable in an IPA, where that the grassiness, the herbiness, the citrus was all the rage. I mean, this is Palisade, this is Simcoe, and Centennial, I believe, is the hop bill on this. And I haven't brewed with Palisade in many, many years. I brewed with it a lot years and years ago. What kind of style? They call this an American IPA. Because we now have like hazy IPA, East Coast IPA, West Coast IPA, is this a hybrid? Is this something completely different, or does it fall in one of those categories to you?
So nowadays, probably if someone were to, well, I'll give you two perspectives. My perspective would be this would probably be like what they call the Midwest IPA, kind of like your Bell's Two Hearted, where there's a slightly bigger malt bill than some of those West Coast, but it's still got that same hop charge. Like if you ever have like the old like Stone IPA, that was almost in a lot of ways very devoid of malt compared to some of its counterpart.
Sure, yeah.
But it had that big hop charge. This is similar in the sense of I'm getting that same bittering, and I'm getting those same like grapefruit citrus flavors, but I'm getting a little bit of like caramel malt. I would almost, if someone told me if there was like a Munich in there, I'd be like, oh yeah, I taste that, you know? So yeah, I would call this like a Midwest IPA, but as bittering as it is compared to now, and even some of the direction West Coast is going, people would probably think, if you've never had this beer, or not even just this beer, but this style of beer, would probably think this is just a West Coast, like an old school West Coast.
Because there's bitterness to it, right? Anything with bitterness is now a West Coast IPA to some people. You mentioned the malt character, which is really important because this beer is relatively malty for the style and not overly done. I think it's well balanced. It's my kind of, when I was drinking a lot of IPAs years and years ago when I first was getting into them, this was my speed because it wasn't just straight bitterness. It had some malt character. I was a big fan of red ales and brown ales and things of that nature. You're not seeing the color here in this video because we're trying to show off this beautiful packaging and make sure that they get their props for that. But this has kind of an amber hue when you pour this into a glass, and there is some caramel malt, there is some breadiness that's going on in here to add to those citrus flavors. You mentioned pine resin. I got pine immediately. I'm happy that my palate's working well because everything you mentioned I got immediately. This is a brand that is available here in South Florida. Several other brands are available. They've been available here for, I want to say, at least 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. When I was first really getting into the craft beer scene, these guys were either just getting into the market or had been in slightly beforehand. And they've got some really, really great beers. I remember Peg Leg Imperial Stout was a beer that I thought was incredibly underrated for a 12-ounce bottle Imperial Stout that was just incredible and well made and had tons of malt character and roast and richness. I think this is and I hate saying this because this is a great brand. I hate saying something is underrated because that's inferring that somehow people don't think that they're good. I don't think that's true. I just think in the sea of all the beers, I think Heavy Seas beer gets a little bit lost, at least in our market, because there's so many options.
Yeah, and for sure, and especially with with a style like this, although I would say the West Coast is finally starting to make a comeback, if you want to call it that, even though it really never went away. A lot of people, this wouldn't be their like first choice if you're getting in a craft beer now. And I mean, it's in a way, it's awesome for people who like it, and that's why I wasn't even sure if this is the iteration I've had. But they have like so many variations of what they do that, in a way, it's awesome for us. But someone might see that and be like, "Oh, I can just get that whenever," and walk past it, not realizing like, well, no, you might not always be able to get that. So you should probably try some of these and not just go to the, like you said, there's 80 other brands that'll do one-offs all the time. So of course that draws the appeal, because it's like, oh, I have to get this right now. But I mean, they are classic. The beer still tastes great. And to nerd out for a quick second, the one thing I like about this with the grapefruit and all those citrus flavors you're getting is, now that we know more about like thiols and these sulfur compounds and these terpenes, like I don't know if they did it on purpose, but even picking like Simcoe and Centennial, whoever's working on this knows hops. So like someone was like, I'm gonna do this and make this beer taste a certain way, and they nailed that.
Well, you heard it from our resident hop expert, Ralph, who spends 99% of his day studying, researching hops, that this is not just a great beer, but it's a well thought out beer. It's extremely well balanced. It's got a lot of great things going on and a lot of complexity to it that's coming from these hop flavors, these malt flavors. And I would be absolutely thrilled to go to a party and see this beer here, and to be able to drink it. And I'm thrilled that this was recommended, because it's a beer that I have not revisited personally in at least a year or two, the last time I had one of these, and it's as good as I remember it. So please, go pick up some Loose Cannon. You'll be happy that you did. Please do all the normal YouTube things, like, subscribe, leave a comment. You can leave a comment on these videos when they go up, and the story vids on Instagram, but also you can just leave comments here on this video saying what you think we should be drinking in the future. As you can see, we use a lot of them. We use a lot of them for our future beers, and we get a lot of really great suggestions, which is really exciting for us. And we will see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.